for watching AquariumTech today. By the way, did I just have a really cool intro going on there? I don't know. See, I'm like doing this and then it gets edited. Hopefully I'll have a cool little intro going, because I always have people asking about what's going on with my life and stuff, so sometimes maybe I'll put up a cool intro or whatever, showing some of the stuff I do. Anyways, today, I was going to do, because I've been getting a lot of quote-unquote noob questions or new beginner questions, and to be honest, I really, now that I think about it, haven't touched on beginner stuff maybe as much as I should have. So I'm going to try to do a few videos about that. Now, I'm trying to compile, as of now, maybe like a frequently asked questions, like a fact for noob questions, quote-unquote. So, you know, if you have them, maybe you can send them to me and I can get them in the next video. But while we're here today, I want to go ahead and do a video about how to set up a tank. Just a general how to set up a tank, you know, from just basics, okay? So, I have a little example thing to help me out here. So, anyways, how to set up a tank. So, first off, now, this is going to require some research, because you need to make sure you get the right tank, the right size, you know, you're within price range, you know what you want to do with the tank, you know, whether you want to have gravel, or I'm sorry, I messed up there, but yeah, that is actually very important, what kind of gravel you want, which is, you know, going to be dictated by whether you want plants, or like a cichlid tank, or just a regular community tank, or whatever. So you're going to have to decide a lot of this stuff beforehand, and, you know, I can give you advice, but that's going to vary from situation to situation, but it's different for what you want to do. So there's, you know, I can't just tell you what's the best, although I will say I love plants, and I do think they are the best way to go, in which case you want to use a plant substrate, and maybe I'll do a video on just gravels sometime. But anyways, so it depends which route you want to go. But that's, you know, you're going to have to decide a lot. You want to decide this stuff beforehand. Research is key. I can't tell you how important that is, because really you should be setting that tank up exactly like that, whatever specific fishes you are going to have in their environment. Not only are they going to be the most happy that way, but they're going to be the most healthy that way. Healthy equal happy, pretty self-explanatory. I'll go ahead and show you a demo here with just some stuff that I've got laying around to try to illustrate what you're supposed to do. So anyways, assuming you've done your research, you know what size tank you want. By the way, for beginners, I might even just do a video on this itself, this topic, but for beginners, it is not easier to have a smaller tank. In fact, it is easier to have a bigger tank. It is easier to take care of a bigger tank. The problem being is in your water chemistry. Things like ammonia, pH, KH, you know, general hardness, carbonate hardness, which is KH, phosphates, nitrates, all that other stuff, okay? In a small tank, it can rise and lower very quickly, and usually it's not necessarily it being high that kills fish, it's it quickly changing that kills fish. It's usually the change that kills them, although of course it can, you know, super high levels, you know, get instantly, but I'm not going to get into that. But basically, it's usually the change, and in smaller tanks, obviously can happen quicker because there's less water. And another thing is, usually beginners tend to add fish very quickly for the tank, so, you know, usually a bigger tank will help, you know, soak that up and not, you know, help you out there. Now, I'm not saying go out and buy a 200-gallon tank. What I mean by, really I should say big to medium tank. Really ideal for beginners is like a 55-gallon tank. That's perfect. It's like a medium-sized tank. Maybe even a 75-gallon tank going a little bigger. I mean, that's perfect. For beginners, I really wouldn't go lower than a 29, but I know most beginners go with a 10. And really, there's nothing wrong with that. It just, you have to pay more attention to it. Obviously, you know, volume-wise, it's less work, but water chemistry, which is something obviously you haven't had a lot of experience with if you're a beginner, that's the tricky part, and that's, you know, the hard part. And usually you enjoy bigger tanks anyways. After you've decided, and usually you want to decide what filters and stuff you want too. So let's say you've decided everything so far, and by the way, I do have videos up, like I have one on things to look for in power filters, and when it comes to hang-on backs, I'm sure you guys know exactly what I'm going to suggest. So there's only 2, maybe 3 things on my mind when it comes to that. Anyways, so actually setting up the tank. So I'm going to start off with this because I had this laying around. So let's pretend this is your 29-gallon tank here. Something else I forgot to mention when setting up your tank here, so hopefully I'll interject this at the right time. So something very important, you know, after you've done your research, but before or even at the same time you buy your tank, a stand. I didn't mention it because I'm, you know, using this, and this obviously doesn't really need a stand, and not really thinking about it, so, but you need a stand. This is so important. You should get a stand, in fact, before you get your tank if need be. Usually people get it at the same time because they just go and buy it. But a stand is so very crucial. I know a lot of people, they try to use rickety old, just whatever fits on there, okay? Or, you know, whatever they can balance it on, okay? Now, maybe like a 10-gallon and under tank, you can put on a sturdy, listen to what I just said, a sturdy, a strong, you know, piece of furniture you might have lying around or whatever. Strong, but it still has to all be completely on a flat surface. It can't be like halfway, you know, the sides can't be hanging off. It doesn't work that way because you're going to have a broken tank and your freaking room or wherever it's at is going to get flooded. You're going to kill fish and possibly electrocute yourself, alright? So a stand, and even if you're going to build your own stand, a lot of people do that, and a lot of times it does end up really well. But you have to be very careful. You have to be very, very precise with the angles if you really want it to last, and you know, if you really care. And the reason being is tanks are extremely heavy. A lot of people don't take this into account, and they don't find it out till, you know, after they've had their tank for a while. You know, water is very heavy. Water, I think, is like 8 point something pounds per gallon. I mean, plus your tank's got the filters, it's got fish, the gravel. Gravel is going to be really heavy as well. I don't know if you guys have ever gotten those big bags of like EcoComplete and stuff. It's pretty heavy. You know, and anything else you might have in your tank. So really, at the very least, it's, you know, if you're doing a complete, you know, total figuration, it's at least 10 pounds per gallon of tank. And really, it's even more than that. And plus, you got to actually include the weight of the tank as well. So, you know, you're going to be, you know, you're looking at least 11 to 12 pounds per gallon of your tank. That's a 10-gallon tank. You're looking at like 120 pounds. Yeah. Those rickety old thing. It might look like a small tank, but it's got some weight to it. This tank right here, this is a 39-gallon tank. This thing weighs probably like almost 450 pounds. Do you hear what I said? 400, probably almost, maybe like 400 pounds. Almost you know, between 400 and 450 pounds, okay? It's not going to fit on some rickety old shit you've had lying around and where the edges are hanging off. Another thing about the edges hanging off, it's obviously, that's less tank that's supported, so that's more weight on the actual piece of furniture. So, and that's why I was saying, if you're going to build your own, you have to be pretty precise with it. If you're off just a little bit and your building materials are less than par, it can really affect your structure long term. You know, eventually, you know, that one, you know, degree or whatever, you didn't nail it together right, will just, you know, from you accidentally running into it or something, you know. So I usually just suggest buying a stand. It's up to you what you want to buy. The metal and the wood ones are both sturdy. I usually like the woods because they got the cabinet. But, you know, it's up to you, okay? That part's completely up to you. The wooden ones are usually always going to be more expensive. Either one will work. But again, so very important that you get a stand for your tank. And usually when you first talk about stands, they go by length. You know, usually got your 10 gallons at like 20 inches, you know, 10, that's like your 15s, and I think 15s, right? And then like your 20X, you know, your 20 high and your 14s. And then you got 20-inch tanks, which are like your 20 to like 25 or all the little ones in between. And then you got your 30 inches, which is like your 29-gallon tanks, and then you got your 36 inches, which is like a tank like this. This is a 36-inch tank. But you also do need to pay attention to the width, because there are some funny sizes that they make stuff for out there, because there are some funny tanks out there. So, you know, check the dimensions. Of course, this goes in with the research thing I was saying. So, again, personally, I suggest you just buy a stand. Easiest way.
Shooter ready? Stand by.